Time being 7:06, call the Ripon Area Fire District Board meeting to order. Roll call, Mr. Yatsky.
Here.
Mrs. Schatzinger.
Here.
Mr. Wirch.
Here.
Mr. Wargula.
Here.
Mr. Page.
Here.
Mr. Hanson is absent. And I'm here. Anything with the agenda? If not, we'll look for a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Public comment.
I would like to introduce Safety Chief Burton, who's the Vice President of the Association, and Captain Donovan, who's the President of the Association, and they would like to speak tonight. So I don't know where you want to sit or stand or whatever. So have at it. You're on camera. So you can.
Okay, so last night we had an association meeting and the association made a decision as to what to do with the money that we were gifted to us from ORV. And we decided to do the concrete floor of the memorial wall. And we'll be doing the inside of the concrete, or inside of the memorial wall, and then the concrete around it. So it matches up to the sidewalk that's already there in the driveway, so there's like no little grass and stuff, it'll be all one smooth area. And then we also voted on helping with the drone, and then helping with the tires for the antique engine is where we have decided to put.
What was the last thing?
Help with the tires for the antique engine.
If I could ask, is that, so that's completing the memorial?
That should complete
Correct.
the memorial, and then we're gonna look into plaques and stuff for it.
Right, but the completion of the memorial,
but
that's what you're
that's-
talking
yep.
about? What was the cost of that? Do you know?
The concrete was $13,162.
What was your voted amount? Do you know what that was?
For
Like,
which?
For last night, for the memorial?
13,000.
13,000.
13,162.
And how much, you said help out for the drone? How
Yeah,
much?
they decided that, well, they were waiting for drone operator Davis to get back to us to decide if he wanted to do the $10,000, if he thought the $10,000 drone would get us through, or there's a new $14,000 drone. So they voted to do, if he says the 10,000 is what would help us, then we would go 5,000. If he said the $14,000, we would go up to 7,000.
So just so you know, we've talked about the drone in the past, how the software is not really supported anymore, and it's outdated already. Things get outdated so fast. So the cost of the drone, just to reiterate what Captain Donovan's saying, is that the cost of the drone is between 10 and 14,000 to upgrade and to get everything current. And they're willing to split that. They're donating and they're giving some money to the district for that. So I thank them for that. And then I don't think, we never even talked about antique tires before. So we have an antique engine out there that's been sitting with flat tires for the last 3 years. We used to use it for parades, whether it was taking somebody from the college in the parade or the high school or whatever, homecoming. And I used it for some public education events, but with the flat tires, obviously can't do anything. Those tires are very expensive nowadays. They're $2,000 tires. Or $2,000 worth of tires. So that vehicle was bought half by the district at the time and half by the association. So each put in $2,500 to buy that. It was stuck in a barn somewhere. So just like the training tower, when the association put money towards the training tower to be built, the district, they donated the money for the structure to complete the project, which was a lot of money, and it was on the district to maintain it after that, just like the fire safety trailer or anything else that's been donated. So, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on anything, I'm just trying to clarify a couple things. Chief,
You
Deborah,
covered
do you have anything to?
You covered it all. You did well.
Okay.
You had asked about how much paying for the drone, the same question for the tires. Are you paying for the entire amount for the tires?
We'll put $1,000 towards the tires.
And you said it's 2,000, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, so they would split the
$1,000.
cost.
Yep, we'll split it.
So 7,000, 5,000 to 7,000 towards the drone, 1,000 for the tires, and then they're completing the
Memorial Wall.
memorial. And
Have you found, we've been able to find some tires?
we did, yeah.
Okay.
They were hard to find, but we found
They
them.
were real hard.
Yeah, and, you know, again, I applaud, and I'm sure the deputy's the same thing, that, we applaud what the association does and how it supports the fire department, and, you know, saves some taxpayer dollars of ours by doing that. All these fundraisers, chicken barbecues, raffles, or whatever, so, thank you for that.
Right, and we thank you for coming in. We understand we don't have the say in your money,
Right.
but it was just for our information, so what we knew you were gonna use yours for, so we could
Right.
do what we needed to do with ours. So we thank you for coming in and giving us that information.
And the association will be placing a plaque, not only for the donation.
Yep. Yeah, they talked last night about possibly putting a plaque out there to recognize Orv for his contribution, and then we'll also recognize the person who donated all the footings, the concrete footings for the memorial wall.
So
Okay,
that'll come from the association.
Yeah,
It'll
that'll
come
come on the associations.
from the association separately for those
all right,
donations.
very good. Thank you.
Okay,
Sure.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys, appreciate it.
Any other public comment? Secretary's report. You should have all received a copy of that. Any additions or corrections to the March 1st? If not, we'll look for a motion to approve that.
I guess I'll make a motion to approve that. Your turn, Jonathan.
I'll second.
He didn't pressure you.
It's on camera.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Review accounts payable and treasurer's report.
Yeah, on page 1, there's been some maintenance stuff done, fire extinguishers and that type of thing. But the one I wanted to point out was Webster's Marketplace. We did that Webster's Marketplace in Cousin Subs. That was when we hired all the part-time guys and girls. And we did 2-day training, like an academy type thing. So they were here from 8 in the morning till, or 7 in the morning till 5 at night, both days, Saturdays and Sundays. So that's what that was, provide them food for their meals and rehab. And then on page 2, we had special EMS training with critique that was for the roadhouse. And the fire store below it was, those were EMS bags that we just bought to put on a fire engine, to start assisting EMS with some mutual aid stuff when they need it. So our bags just kind of mirror and match their bags for our EMTs.
How many did you get?
So they're very expensive.
2 bags?
2 bags, yes. Yep. And
So be able to sleep in that.
what's that?
That price, you ought to be able to sleep in it.
I knew you were gonna say that. And that's it. That's all I have though.
Any questions for the chief on anything?
I will say that coming up, there's gonna, obviously, we, in the next round of bills payable, we just had all our pump testing done and our annual pump testing and preventative maintenance done. They found some issues maintenance-wise, so I'm just giving you a heads up next month when you see a lot of Renner's fire equipment on there, that's what it's gonna be. So, that's all annual testing.
Any other questions or comments on accounts payable or treasurer's report? If not, we'll look for a motion.
Make a motion to approve treasurer's report and accounts payable for March.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any other discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Jim, anything on outstandings?
No, just, the biggest thing is we got a hold with Barb now, and I gave her some of the collection letters and things like that. We're gonna be a little bit more aggressive with the mailings, with the letters and with the billing statements and stuff, so kind of a preemptive, so we are working on that, so just so you guys are aware of that. So
And we-
that hopefully Tim will get more phone calls and more things like that, so.
And actually, I have a folder on my desk that's already organized for inspection time, because we're gonna push that too. So if they want their inspection, they need to pay their bill.
I sent that to you too.
Yeah, I did get that.
I'm gonna jump back here, public comment, I forgot something, I just wanted to mention that Barb was in the hospital, had some surgery. The board was gonna send her some flowers, but the chief took care of it, just to let you know that. I apologize, I forgot about it at public comment, so.
Yes, it was on behalf of the fire district and the board, so killed two birds with one stone.
Thanks, man.
All right, chief's report.
You see the calls on there? I'm not gonna go through them all, but,
Do you have a next one of those? I don't have.
oh,
Otherwise, I could slip next to.
no.
I
You don't have it either. Nobody has it.
No.
Here, I made copies for everyone.
Thank
So,
you.
We're all done.
You do that again.
here you go.
12 minutes, bro, it's ballpark.
Howard's down, Howard's down here. Howard's down here. You're good.
Thank you.
Yeah, it does.
Actually,
This is high school uniform, you kept the notice,
yeah.
yeah.
Send them down.
Send another one that
You
way.
want to see mine? My high school uniform?
Is it up?
This little zippered front?
Oh,
So, you see all the calls there, it was 33 calls for the month. We're about 10 calls ahead of where we were last year. And, actually, I would take that back, 10 calls ahead of where we were in 2020. 2021 with COVID, we weren't having meetings, and I didn't have a monthly report due to my medical condition to compare it to. So, but our current members, 23 paid on call, 10 part-time paid on premise, 3 cadets. Our air pack donation, I'll be taking those air packs, that got put off until Thursday actually, so I'll be taking those up there on Thursday. So thank you for everybody for supporting that and getting that out of here and giving it to somebody who could use it.
Chief, do you want us, people are, for the video, you want to say what that donation is going for?
Sure, our old air packs are being donated because they can't be used to fight fires in the US anymore. They're past their life expectancy, but in another country, they can be used. So there is no retail value to them whatsoever. We couldn't even get anybody to touch those. And because otherwise they'd have to dispose of them. So what we're doing is we're donating to a department in Minnesota that teamed up with a religious mission that is going to give them to Ukraine. So they're going to a good cause, and again, thank you for your support for letting us do that.
Curious on those air packs, what do they actually entail that you're taking up to? They're not tanks, they're just the masks?
No, they're the harness, the tank, and a mask.
Okay,
The
so it's the
one-
whole air pack?
Yeah, a whole air pack. I believe there was 22 complete air packs. We did keep a couple for us, for our drivers. They're not fighting fires, but if they park at a fire and all of a sudden the smoke changes and they're in heavy smoke conditions and they need an emergency pack to throw on, they can throw it on while we get them out of there, we get somebody else in there. So it's really important that those guys have that capability. And that way they're not taking a firefighting pack from a firefighter. So that's that. We're doing a Princeton School District call. They're gonna do they have a student there who's gonna job shadow us at the end of the month. So he's gonna come in and do a job shadow. I did inquire with them, why they called us, if they, I didn't wanna get Princeton upset, and I talked to the chief and he's fine with it. But we're the closest station that has a staffing program for them to do that, so that's why, and I guess that woman lives in Ripon, so she was pretty happy about that. We also have one of our paid on call who is still in high school. He's doing a job co-op, so he comes in every day from, let me get this straight, comes in every day from 2 o'clock till 5 o'clock, and he doesn't get paid for that. That's through the school, and so he's only as an observer. He really can't even fight fires or do anything while he's on their work co-op time, not until 6 o'clock. So, and he's doing awesome. Carson Mack, I cannot say I cannot say enough about the kid. He's been 200% dedicated, and he lives in town. He's not going anywhere, so it's a good thing for us, for the department. I'm not going to be at the next meeting. I'll be out of town in May for my son's wedding. So if you can or would change your meeting, that'd be great. If not, the deputy chief would be pleased to be. That's all I got on that end of it. I'm just going to keep going. Nothing for project updates or staffing updates. No, the staffing hasn't changed. Call volume, we already talked about that with 10 calls ahead of last year or the year before. Nothing on grant applications. We did just put in a scholarship for one of our firefighters who showed interest. That's through Firehouse Sub, so we put in for that, but we won't know that until June. Nothing on classes. That's all I have for now.
All right, thank you. Moving on to old business, we had this on the agenda last month, was the what we were going to use the donation from Orv, and the chief did give us a want list or a need list. You should all have a copy of the estimate for the garage and the garage doors, and we don't need to decide if we're going to use all this money tonight, but there's a few things like the garage. Well, go ahead. You tell what you would.
Well, like the president said, we have, you guys all have the details on the garage. You have 2 bids there. I'm going to pass around. This is a bid for, there's 3 bids I got for the outside for the pavement.
That's in front? Pavement in
This
front.
paving the side area here, yes. So,
Well, I think what we'll do is, let's do garage pavement.
sure, I'm just passing this out. So, as we said before, there was a list I gave you. Some of those things were operational. Some of those were capital improvements related. So tonight, one of the things I wanted to make sure that I get across was, off that list, the upstairs, the second floor, is out. I don't think we need to do that. We'll piece it together like we have been. It's fine. It's sufficient for now. Then we have the garage bid that we talked about from the last list. You have the bids there, and the only other thing is the parking lot. But the garage, we can go ahead and talk about that first, or however you want to handle it.
You all should have copies of the 2 bids for the garage. I'll open this up for discussion if you have questions for the chief on this.
Can we start out with a reminder of the total donation amount?
134,
It was like 126, wasn't it?
something like that. I don't have it with me, I was just looking for it. I sent it to Barb today, and it's in a file.
It was like around 26.
I believe
It was an odd number.
I believe it was 126,000.
Yes, and some change.
126, 134, something like that. Do 126.
And then out of that, we can cut $1,000 for tires and $7,000 for the drone.
If that's what we choose to do with that.
I'm just saying, I mean, it has to come out of your budget somewhere at the end of the day, right?
Correct. The
So,
drone
in theory.
wasn't a budgeted item, so that would have to come from somewhere. And the tires, that could come out of the budget. The budget could handle the tires, in my opinion.
So no, I guess, throw out the apology that I wasn't here at the last meeting. But what about putting it back into, you know, a memorial fund, right, that would just exist, and you can, knowing that you wouldn't want to use a donation to say covers like salary of part-time people, I get that, but, you know, cover training and stuff, right? Because you tapped into your whole reserve fund for the paid on premise this year, right?
Well, I mean, we took what was left and we moved that money in and we
Yeah.
raised our budget a little bit to pay for that. We were still, I think we were at that point still 30,000 short of where we needed to be
Yeah.
for salaries. So now where does that come? It comes from, you know, if we're running more calls, we're getting more revenue. If I'm careful with the budgeting, that process can handle that, hopefully. Where we go next year, I know there was some questions about staffing and stuff like that, so there's been a couple of people who called me with some questions, so, you know, did I answer your question? I kind of got off on a tangent.
No, you did, yeah. I don't know exactly what answer I was looking for. So you're fine.
Okay, good. So, you know, originally we talked last meeting and we said, you know, shouldn't be used for salaries because it's this, you know, it's use it, it's gone, it's only one time. It should be used for capital improvement stuff. Since then, there's been some discussion about that. And I guess, you know, using some of those funds towards that for next year, so that it gives us another year to plan and you know, prepare for and evaluate what we're doing, and to plan where we're going to go and how we're going to get there. You know, you can speak on that, Jim, or whatever, but yeah, I don't know. I kind of got on a tangent, lost it. Sorry.
Well, you just
I
brought
was,
up real quick to follow up, you brought up an idea, didn't you? You said, what about a memorial fund where it could be used for things such as, I don't know, I heard that's
Yeah,
what
I
you
guess I
said.
just see the next thing in the agenda is the new engine, right? It's coming up right after this. So
Yeah,
I see
but-
new engine as a line item. Obviously, this wouldn't cover new engine by any means. I just, you know, looking at the budget for next year and knowing everything's going more expensive, right? Housing's getting cheaper. People are going to be harder to come by in the future. So budgeting is just going to get worse and worse. And so I guess I just have a large question about using money for the garage that is a capital improvement. But it's something that, you know, would be a nice, right? You could say that you guys maybe feel like it's a need, right? But you know, it's more of a nicety than having a new engine when you need it, or having, you know, actual people here. If you come to the city council for a budget raise in 3 years from now, and we're like, we don't know where we're going to come up with this money. I just really wonder if there's a better use.
Two things I'll talk about. Number one is the engine. We can't, I don't want to say we can't worry about the engine, but the engine, we're going to have to borrow for the engine, no matter what, right? We're going to have to borrow just like we borrowed for the ladder truck. You guys weren't here, but the way we purchased the truck is the way we're going to have to purchase the engine. We all know that. This money wouldn't even make a dent in that engine, technically. So the engine to me is, I get what you're saying, but this isn't really going to make a dent in that. As far as the staffing goes, you know, I mean, yeah, and there's other things. Yes, the money could be prioritized in other ways, you know. The garage we feel is a need because our equipment, you know, the chicken barbecue stuff, it's getting destroyed out in the elements. We have a chicken barbecue trailer sitting outside right now that we have no place to put it. You know, there's the antique engine is taking up room. It's very tight to get the engine through there. And our lawn equipment, and I could go on and on, but we need that storage area, you know. Now, there's two different things, and I talked to Jolene about this yesterday, she said, well, our priority is the daytime staffing. I totally agree with that. Operationally, number one, right? But if we're talking capital improvements, we're talking garage and parking lot, those are our two priorities, right? In my opinion, or our
No, yes,
opinion.
exactly,
I
yeah.
mean, and then the engine, I get what you're saying, but I don't think that this money should be even thought about for the engine, just because it's not gonna make, an engine's gonna be $500,000 to $600,000. So this, if it was $150,000, I'd say buy a new engine right now, hands down. But, I hope that answers your question. I wanted to go a little bit. I get to keep talking.
No.
It's helpful. Going back to the cost of an engine, I want to ask our finance, perhaps person who has more expertise than me. When it comes to the amount that we are, I'm going to ask, perhaps if Jim, if you have any insight. When it comes to an engine though, based on the amount that we have to borrow, could our interest rate be less?
We'll end up leasing it. That's what we do with the.
Is that lease done now?
Oh, yeah.
We paid that off.
3 years ago,
I
at
would say
least.
3.5.
Yeah.
3.5. I think they paid right away. I think you guys paid it right away, and we paid ours off. We got 3 years ago. We had a chunk left over at the end of the year. We threw it on
Just leave
there.
it on it.
So yeah, that was fine. But we'll end up leasing it. So basically, similar. I don't want to say similar to a car lease if anybody's ever had one, but we'll end up leasing it again with not a buyout at the end, but they do a lease to own. That's what we did last time. And again, we'd send 6%, 26%, 76%, and everybody has their portion. And how they come up with that is either through what they have in reserves and or one-time budget expense for that year. Usually we would try to do that and let them know September that we are buying it next year. So then they can figure for their budgets. But it ended up being a lease is what we typically would do now with them.
And to buy an engine too, you have to, we're gonna need one. When you see the maintenance stuff coming across, we're gonna need one. And we're talking, if we want it next year, we need to spec it out this year. Because it takes a year, better, probably a year and a half now to build an engine.
So there'll be plenty of leeway up. It won't be like unless, I mean, obviously,
We got lucky with
catastrophic, something happens. It would be enough.
It fit what we needed.
Yeah, the 17 the ladder truck was being built already, but we got in on it. So they wanted to deal with it because they built it, they wanted to sell it, but they were building it as a demo, and we got in it early enough to make the changes that we needed or that were pertinent to us, and, get it a lot less than we would have paid for it. It's a probably $2-3 million truck that we got for $980,000, I think it was.
And earlier than we normally would have.
Yeah.
Because it was already.
Correct, yeah, it was a lot quicker than we would have normally got it, so.
So help me understand why part of this donation would not be prudent to go towards payment then of the lease? Why
Again,
would-
it's the left pocket, right pocket is what it really comes down to it. It's a matter of, do we do something now and have the tangible benefit of using those funds for something tangible now versus an engine at 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? That vehicle purchase isn't about the engine on today's agenda, so that's not even about the engine. It could be 3 years, could be 2 years, and then we'd be sitting on money doing nothing towards benefiting possibly the fire department in that time. I mean, again, it's a left pocket, right pocket, operational capital. It's a teeter-totter either way. There's not a right or wrong answer. We've had this discussion 12 years ago.
Yeah.
But a thing, a little tangent I'll throw in there is, remember, donations like this, typically they're not used operationally. I think you had mentioned earlier, John, was that you don't put those towards operational salaries and things like that, because you should be able to budget for those without donation, right? Also, you have to be careful if you're using those donated funds towards your general budget, you're not gonna have that donation next year. You can't plan on another donation next year of $120,000. So if you took your budget and took 120 grand away, and then the next year you'd have to come back, you couldn't do that. You couldn't go to the town and cities and raise it, because it's gonna raise by more than your 5%.
By far.
Yeah, like, so it'd be like 25%.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but you're right.
So that you have to be careful there. If you're gonna implement that into operational, for anything operational, that would then come off your budget, and then you couldn't ask for that back again the next year.
But I'm confused in that, if we say we're gonna implement it operational, we're not talking about adding something. We're talking about we have funded something that I don't understand our plan for future years. You know, again, the paid on premise, I don't understand, we know that that's now needed. And if we're honest with ourselves, I don't see a way that we're not gonna need that in the future.
It's the same thing though, if say you did the garage and you took the other 70 grand, 'cause that's about what we put away for the paid on premise. That 70 grand would be gone next year too. It's only gonna be good for a 1-year influx. So I mean, you're still looking 2 years, 3 years. If the paid on premise is the way of the future, which it could be, that's just a question. That could be 5 years on, you still gotta fund it for 5 years from now. When I looked at all this and I was thinking, I don't wanna burn everything out of it, and Tim and I have talked about it, and we've always talked about this, trying to get bang for your buck, but also hold on to it in case something else comes up. Try to do something good with it, but also hold some in reserves for something else. And we've done that at the city level too, we were talking about the ARPA funds and stuff like that. We used it all towards a capital improvement, same concept. But you just gotta be careful that way of operational versus capital. And it really comes down to a matter of what everybody here decides and prioritizes, if you will. Left pocket, right pocket, operational, capital, it's a balancing act. We've talked about the garage for 12 years. And it's been kicked down the road, because it wasn't in general funding. And we couldn't go back to the city and say we need 25 grand or 50 grand or, towards that. It wasn't ever available. With a donation like this, sometimes you do these capital projects because it's the only way you'd ever get it done. In past. I'm not saying that's the way to go, but I'm just historically how it's happened.
I understand where Jolene's coming from. I appreciate looking, like, how are we gonna do this? We talked about that when we first did the daytime staffing, was how are we gonna plan this? What do we do next year? What do we do next year? So putting a little bit towards that, like to your point, gives us another year and we can plan and evaluate and see where we're going. I get that end of it, but I get that end of it too.
It was not right or wrong. I
No.
don't think there's not a magic crystal ball of the future either.
I gotta say too, we were very fortunate to get this money. And if I was given money, which I wouldn't want it to go into the budget to pay the fire guys, I'd want to do something extra with it that they need, or that would help the morale of the fire department or something like that. I think let's say we put this whole thing into the budget, which you brought up a good point. You do that, you really kick yourself in the head next year. But I think that would turn away people that maybe would want to give things to the fire department. And that's just my feeling.
That's a good point.
When somebody gives a donation, usually they like something they can see from it. Anyway, that's the way I am. And I know a lot of people probably think the same way. So I think we have to be a little careful there. And I understand what you're saying. But I don't know, I guess, if you're working and you're making enough money and a great aunt gives you some extra money, are you gonna use it for your budget if you've got enough to cover your budget? Or are you gonna put it aside for something extra, like maybe a trip, or, that's the way I think about it.
And I'm just gonna throw this out there because, and Chief, I don't know if you got different ideas, but one way that, when we first started talking about, I'm gonna just put that premise to rest here. When we first started talking about it, before I even brought it to you, there were some community people who said, well, the community should know this. Like, we would pay extra for that. We would do that. It's important to have. So keep that in mind, because if we, let's say down the road, that we wanted a fire district, just like the school board went for a referendum, we could go for a referendum to pay for our part-time staffing because, you know, and let the community speak, what do they want? And let them decide what we're gonna be and how we're gonna go forward. You know, part of the referendum obviously would be, look, if we do this, we're doing this to stay a part-time fire department, because that's gonna save us millions of dollars from being a full-time fire department somewhere. So, you know, you gotta sell it, and maybe it's a way, that's an option down the road. Maybe that's an option. Or add more to the budget, go back to our constituents, you know. I think we're on the track to save a lot of money in the future and still provide a service. So there's other options. To me, there's other options out there. I don't know.
No, I
They're
agree.
just thoughts.
I agree with all the thoughts of everyone. I mean, there's a lot of pros and cons to both things. You know, I agree with your statement, but I also agree with your statement. And, you know, I've been involved in different organizations over the years, and when you do get donations, if they aren't earmarked for a specific thing, people do like to see their name or something associated with it. Whereas if it just goes for, you know, paying the bills, they really don't, you know, they don't get their bang for the buck, and they don't get the recognition, I guess, that they're looking for. And some people like that recognition once it's done and over with. So, you know, that's just my opinion as well. But I think, you know, everybody's kind of hit the right things, that, you know, right pocket, left pocket, you know.
People want to do something extra for where they get their money.
Yes.
Whether they want the recognition or not. You know, I guess if I gave money, I wouldn't want my name up there. You know, I just would do it and say, whoa, I know they built the garage. My kids would know they built the garage. That's all I care about. But, you know, if it was going to pay Chief Saul's salary, I'd think, well, he can sell some more ice cream. You know?
And I'm gonna, since our last meeting, I've been contacted by the donators, if that's the right word, yesterday and today, and they would like to see that garage built and a plaque put there. As far as the rest of the money, yes, they still would not like to see it go for salaries and that. But they relayed that to me, that they would like to see something like the
Something
garage,
tangible.
that they can we put a plaque on there, whatever, that recognizes, or for that building. It's gonna be there forever, where, you know, if you do it for again, I'm not for or against either way here, I'm just relaying what their thoughts are. And I think, you know, if you don't do something that they want, it may affect your donations.
The next time, yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that information, because previously I didn't know that there was any sort of stipulations when we got the donation, and I think what's interesting for me is to hear that this has been something talked about, I just heard, for 12 years or so, and we've existed for 12 years without this. And so I'm not saying that it's not a need versus a want, but it's interesting that for 12 years, again, we've served the community for a time when obviously it was brought up a long time ago that probably, it was a high need or high want at that time. I was hesitant to, as much as I agree that people may want something tangible, I also can imagine that if I gave money, I'd want my donation to go towards the greatest needs that serve the safety of the city. And so I'm careful not to project my own desire to see something, when, to your point, maybe you don't want your name on something. And if there was no stipulations, again, I think that if someone gives money, they want it to make sure that it goes to the greatest needs towards the safety of who we serve, of what we're serving. But now with the new information, apparently, which I didn't know, that the family has wanted this, if that's a new addition.
And my understanding, when they gave that to the district, I don't know as though there was any really
I don't think
stipulations to
stipulation,
it.
this is more of a preference from their point of view.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not saying, hey,
Not like the.
this is
not like the
it
mental gift where
or
you
not.
can't-
I mean, I'm not saying that. I'm just offering what they relate to me.
They have a preference, not a stipulation, so there is a difference there.
Yeah.
And one of the things with the garage, we don't have the amount of space in this facility that we did 12 years ago. You know, the upstairs is totally changed. That used to be a lot of storage space. We didn't have as many vehicles out in the bays back then as we do now.
Trailers, apparatus.
Exactly.
antique
It's
engine.
getting crowded.
We've added
So-
equipment in. The ladder truck now is bigger than the older ones.
Right.
Quite a bit.
So, you know, we do have to look at that aspect that, you know, we do need space.
The other thing, if you look at it like you did, Jolene, we could have served the district downtown in the old fire station. We couldn't have served them very well, and we would definitely curtail what kind of vehicles we could put in there, but we still would have had a fire department. You know, I don't think you can look at it like that. You're right, we've not had that garage, we still have a fire district, we still fight fires, but, you know, I think it's like, you've got a house, you never had a deck, but now you've got a grill. And you know, do we want to grill on the deck or we want to grill out on the lawn? And that's kind of how I look at it. And we didn't build this thing because we didn't want to take money away from, or generally what we have to do. But now we have the money where we could finish it. And we've already stuck some money into it. I mean, that slab has been there. What good's the slab? We should have left the slab off. We had more room to turn around over.
That slab, we gotta remember, that slab, we got it at a great deal. That's why we jumped
That's
on
what we
it,
did.
Yep.
to save the money from
Yeah.
knowing that this is what we're gonna do later. But let's get the slab done now to save the money.
And I think we all know that the fire service is ever changing, you know, and that, you know, our staffing needs are gonna be changing, you know, our demographics gonna be changing, our, you know, and so in that, you know, we're trying to adapt and adjust. And I use this analogy as far as when COVID hit, we kind of, everybody got a reset, I think, you know, they stayed at home, got to stay with their families and such, and so they are looking at things in a slightly different perspective, and in doing so, I think it's changed how people look at potentially doing this type of work, you know, on a part-time paid-on-call basis versus being full-time. And so, you know, the way we recruit, we have to change and do, and I think right now we're on a good path, everything is going in the right direction, you know, and I think it's just a matter of us just getting that, you know, dialed in and going in the right direction. And so, in doing so, it's going to be something that, you know, may be here for a while, you know, that we have to adjust and adapt to. Donations are only going to cover a part of that, you know, and eventually, as a district, as a community, you know, we're going to have to come up with ways to fund that if the need is there. And so, you know, it's, again, you know, do you take it out of the right pocket or the left pocket? You know, the way I look at it.
I also looked at time frame too. I think you had touched on it. You know, a garage is gonna be 40, 50, 60 years versus operationally would be a one-time. Again, that's why usually you don't put that influx into operational, because it's a one-time shop. You try not to do a lot sometimes maybe with technology and stuff, because that's also gonna evolve so fast. It's a Band-Aid, I guess, I don't know, technical term, but it's more of a Band-Aid. It gets you by right now, but then guess what, 3 years you gotta replace it again, so. Is it good money or bad? I mean, that analogy comes into play. But 100%, I love the conversation we're having, because there isn't a right or wrong, there really isn't. Because we can win as a district, any which way we do it. I think we're gonna win. And again, I think that's where I'm leaning towards doing a little bit of like the garage, and then we still have 70 grand, 60 grand sitting there. I mean, we'll still have that as that cushion, and or towards the fire truck, and or towards one of these other capitals, or the drone. Again, depending what we can do operationally out of the regular budget versus using these kinds of funds. So, I mean,
And right,
That's
I mean, we don't have to decide
no,
on doing that asphalt tonight.
No.
Or any of that other stuff. I mean, that money can stay in there.
The garage though, they did, you asked, or somebody asked what the time frame was for the garage. He said right now they're looking at July or August, but he said every day their jobs get pushed farther out, and so, you know.
No, I guess my feeling is as far as the garage, I think we should make that decision tonight.
I do too.
Because material costs are gonna keep going up.
And I just wanted to throw one last thing out there, promise, was, you know, if you put that, if you take what the garage, the one bid, and you do it, and do it with the doors, comes out to roughly $60,000. And then to credit to what you said, was put that other stuff in the memorial fund and then decide where you're gonna use it. Maybe that's a better option, you know?
Yeah, I guess that's what my question tied off from there. Well, before I go into that, so apologies to you, but I was ready to vote no for it, to be that guy that voted no for the garage. But like, I wish you wouldn't have said what you said, because now I'm on the fence now. That made it a little more difficult.
Well,
knowing that
and I was, you know, I was obligated to, I mean, they came to me,
No.
and I'm obligated to put that out there.
Yeah, so no, it's helpful. But how often do you, because I remember a couple meetings ago, we had somebody retire, right? And part of the retirement is they get some amount of money. So I guess my question was, how often are people retiring? One a year? Every couple of years?
They won't retire for a long time. As of today. No, you know, it's so hard to say. I mean, I could look at the roster right now and be like, nobody's gonna retire for the next 3 years. And I've talked to people, they're not going anywhere. Well, what does that mean? You know, some guys are 70, 80 years old. I don't know how old they are, but they're older. There are drivers. Nothing's, you know,
Nothing's in stone.
I mean, nothing's set in stone. Do I see anybody going right now? I don't. You know, I know he's gonna be around for another few years, and we'll go from there, but.
And we've had years where nobody's.
Right.
Yeah.
For years,
Lots of
like
years.
2-3 years even. I mean.
Exactly, so.
And then you get a four-banger.
Yep.
I retire, we're best friends, so then you retire, you know, it happens. That's the nature of the industry, that's the nature of anything.
And again, our department is kind of doing that flop where, you know, the older generation there's less and less of us, and there's a lot more of the younger, you know, generation. So, you know, we're kind of in that spin where, you know, we may see a few more retirements, and then we may have several years where there's nothing.
But too, that money is budgeted, and I'm confident we're sitting really good with that money right now. So.
So if there's no other discussion, we'll look for a motion.
Well, I will just add real quick that it sounds like, again, the family wants this. They may not have known what all the options were. It is, for me and the others on the city at least, I don't know what the township and NPS think, you know, when I think about being, you know, fiscally responsible, when I see, you know, if our only option is to pay for things like the paid on premise, which we have all agreed that this is what is needed at this time to make sure that our communities are safe and able to respond, if our only option is to come back to the municipalities and ask for extra money, for me, what's hard is that this means that at individual levels, we're gonna have to say, well, wait, the police department wants an extra, you know, a police person. Well, we can't fund that. Or the library has to now get, I mean, I can't, I see what cuts will have to be made because we have been, I'm trying to understand our plan for paying for something that is needed. And here we have funds. So it is hard for me to, when we look down the road, I think it's really hard because I know what that cuts will have to mean. It's not like we have just money sitting around in each of our municipalities. I mean, that's literally probably where we're all going to have these conversations.
Well,
What else are we
I
not gonna
guess, take this however you want, but as far as the town of Ripon, we've put money in reserve accounts. We paid for our share of the ladder truck. We have our share of the engine. We've got it. We talked at our annual meeting, we talked to our residents.
People, and they've been good. I
We
think
tell them what's going to be coming up. It's either, you know, you put it in reserve now, or you pay or borrow for it later. And we've done that with our plow trucks, our police cars.
Roads.
Yeah, I mean, we have money. I mean, I'm not sitting here on a pedestal, whatever, but I'm just saying, our residents, we're upfront with them, we tell them what's coming down the road, and we have money in our reserve accounts to pay for what we want.
What we need, that'd be better, what we need.
Pardon me, what we need. Well, it is,
I don't know
yeah.
if you're gonna say something, I was gonna talk over you.
And we've gone, we can do it at an annual meeting, and we've gone to annual meetings, and we have to do the budget thing too, and if you go over the limit that the state says, you have to get your constituents okay on it. And we've almost always been able to do that. And I think today people are getting, you know, I think they do us no favors down in Madison. And you need to watch your budget. You don't want to blow your money. But come on, you've been in the grocery store in the last 6 months? Have you filled up your car with gas in the last 6 months? Now, I know they don't want to give it to a municipality, but somewhere it's got to, you know, if you want services, they have to be paid for somewhere. And I think a lot of times it's how you put it to the people, and you know, if you can explain it to them and you've got a plan for it, that's what happens. But I mean, most of the time people are pretty good at it. You know, I have to give our township credit. They're good for if they can see a need and they know what it's going to be. They've always come to the, maybe not giving you quite what you wanted, but they've always come to the front and approved it. Or maybe
And so far, they keep voting us back in, so. Good or bad.
And the last thing before we go to a motion, then, I mean, are you both saying as sort of representatives, you know, on the ground level with your fellow colleagues, that the garage is something that the department wants? I mean, alternatively, what do? Do we have a survey? I don't know what's been done in the past to understand what they want.
Surveys are a cop-out. They elected you to give your opinion. I think going back and doing all those surveys and everything else is a waste of people's time.
My point
And if
is-
they don't like you, they won't vote for you next time.
She meant surveying the fire personnel, I think.
That's exactly what I meant. Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you.
When we talked, okay, let's talk about this paid on premise. When we talked about the paid on premise before, one of the questions was, okay, this is a need, let's do this. Well, we need to start thinking now how we're gonna do it next year
That's right.
and the next year, right? Well, I don't know how much thought we put into it now of how we're gonna do that. My thought is you go to referendum and you get that money. Fire departments are going to referendums all the time, just like school districts, to get money to pay for certain things, whether it's building a new firehouse, an additional firehouse, replacing existing, or staffing. It's just the way it's done. So I think that's one option. You know, but that's something we need to start talking about now. As far as talking about, and again, that's staffing on a part-time level, not a full-time level. As far as the money, you know, do you do the garage? Yes, I feel the garage is a need. Listening to Barry now, I almost feel obligated personally. What do you do with the money that's left over? Put it in a fund. If we don't come up with a reason, maybe then we say, you know what, this is a need, we have to put it towards this. It's in a fund, just like Mr. Radesky said, it's in a fund, and we do what we do with it.
Some of the paid up premise will get paid out of part-time salaries. We're down from
Correct.
37, 38, 39 firefighters budgetarily to 23. So we have, our part-time salaries are down a third, but we've added more hours for paid on premise during the day. So the sticker shop won't be the entire cost, in my opinion, of the paid on premise. It will be that difference between the part-time salaries that normally would have had it and then these paid on premise people that are covering it. But I still think there'll be a shortage, I think we've talked about it. where that is. It honestly depends on the calls, the call volumes, things like that. So again, we're always kind of a little retroactive, unfortunately, in this industry. We've seen it where we have good years and we're great, and there's years we get to the end of the year and
It's tight.
we're eating ramen noodles and scraping the barrel for some beans just to have supper, so.
I don't know, I mean, Chief, you got anything to say, because
No, I
you're
think.
here for that reason?
Yeah, no,
Speak your mind.
I've been speaking my mind. I think we've been covering, all of the bases, and I think, again, all the, everybody's opinion is valid. There is no right or wrong here. I think everybody's got, great ideas, and, it's just a matter of determining what, is the best use.
So if there's no further discussion, I think first we'll look for a motion. If we're gonna spend the money on the garage, and if that passes, then we'll go to what bid we're gonna accept.
I'd like to make a motion to spend the funds to complete the garage, depending on which bid we accept.
Use funds from the private mobile
Yes.
donation.
From the donation for that.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion?
I would suggest a roll call vote on this.
I agree.
Makes sense.
Yes. Mr. Hanson,
Yes.
Mr. Gatsky,
Yes.
Ms. Schatzinger,
Yes. Welcome to the big league.
Yeah. And just to clarify, the motion is to make a decision tonight to spend it
That's what we're
versus
voting on right now.
it could be in the future. Okay.
Just to build a garage.
Right.
That's all we're, only motion right now, is to build a garage with proceeds from the private mobile.
Respectfully, no.
Mr. Wirch,
Yes.
Mr. Wardula,
Yes.
Mr. Page,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Motion passes 6-1. Then our next discussion will be, we've got two different bids. One from Ripon Area Builders. Ripon Area Builders and overhead door. We use the insulated doors. You're $61,028. Modern pole builders, their price was $75,563. Granted, if you look at both, modern pole builders is a metal exterior. You guys have had both of these, hopefully you have had enough through them. Ripon Area Builders, that's a stud frame, sheeting, vinyl siding, asphalt shingles. And we can open that up for some discussion. Gary?
Well, I was looking at these, I'm not a favor of asphalt roofs at all. But kind of, I think Ripon Area Builders have got to get, but the pole builders have a metal roof, and they have an extra door, and they have more clearance, and they have 2 more feet. It's 2 feet wider than, it's 2 feet wider than Ripon Area Builders. One's 24 and one's 26. It's not a big deal. But on the other hand, pole builders isn't gonna do the apron either. And I drove around tonight because I'm thinking, well, I wasn't sure how that, and you're really gonna have to have an apron, so that would be an extra cost on that we'd have to do if we got the modern poles. But like I said, it's got more clearance, and it's higher, and it's wider, and it's got more doors. That's got a tin roof. But I really don't know which way to go.
Jim?
Question for you, probably. Insulated door, non-insulated door. The rest of the building, I didn't see anything for finishing and insulating, correct?
Correct.
So, maybe naive. Does it pay to have an insulated door if you don't have an insulated wall?
The way I would look at it is, yes, I would do the insulated doors. That way they're there. So in the future,
Okay.
if that does get insulated, you've got the doors. They're already insulated.
And they tend to be a little more solid.
Correct, yeah, I mean, they're not gonna be as,
Just
Yeah.
looking at the two differences. And then would this be like this with a ceiling and attic, or is it all open truss, no truss?
the way this would be trussed,
Yep.
and it would be open.
Okay, so if we're gonna insulate the walls, isn't it going to go to the ceiling isn't insulated?
Well, no, right, I mean, the point is, if you're gonna,
You'd have to finish off with the ceiling.
correct,
Or if you ever
If you
use
were.
it for some type of training and you wanted to finish it off, yeah. I mean, you have another pile of money stuff.
Yeah, insulating and finishing it off and like that would cost funds as well.
yeah, and then one thing with, modern pole would go into the steel roof, you know, their trusses are gonna be, I didn't look exactly here, but, you know, they're gonna be probably 6 to 8 feet apart. Because what they do is, on the top of the truss for their steel, they just run a 2x4 cross member every 2 feet or every 3 feet. So if you do go to finish it off later on, now you got some more framing to do the ceiling, you got more framing in between them trusses to do that. Where, like with, and I shouldn't keep saying Ripon area, but doing it stick frame, the way they're looking at it, your roof trusses are 2 foot on center, everything's set, ready to go.
Just something to think about for future expense and future needs or desires or.
And, you know, I'm, you know, you're getting, you know, I was retired now, but I've been in that business for 46 years, and you know, probably 75% of the garages you put up that aren't insulated within very few years, and I understand this isn't a residential thing, but
In and out moisture.
they end up doing, you know, insulating and drywalling or sheeting just to finish it off.
I'm assuming that the modern builders, the reason it's 2 foot wider is because they'll have to put poles on the outside of this concrete that's already there?
I believe their walls are 2x6 construction.
Right, but why would it be 2 foot wider?
I guess, I
don't know why
can't answer that. I mean, they should have measured whatever the
It might be
slab
the way
was.
they build them, you know, I don't know. It's 2 foot wider and it's taller than the wall.
Right. But we're not looking to store a truck in there.
No, but
Well, the antique engine will be going on in there.
Yeah, but that's like a pickup truck.
No, it's longer than a pickup truck.
But I mean, height-wise,
oh, height.
Trailer's gonna go in there as well.
Yeah, the training, what,
so you're looking at,
You wanna put the
survival life.
other trailer, the chicken barbecue trailer, you wanna go in there, and then is the survival life trailer
I don't
gonna go in
think the
there?
survival life trailer would go in there.
How tall are those?
No,
The survival life trailer?
about 11 feet.
Yeah, we're
So
not,
you wouldn't get that.
no, we're not, that was originally a part of the plan, but we want that kept inside, if we're gonna have it, I think it should be kept inside where it's, climate control, for something like that.
It boils down to me, I honestly think you're getting a better, more versatile building with modern pole building, but that's quite a lot more money, you know. I just, being on a farm, I would never put that small a door in, because they're never right. I mean, if I was building a garage in town, I'd have at least a 10 or 12-foot door. I would never put an 8-foot door. I mean, you know, so you get a little bit bigger pickup and all of a sudden your mirrors will broke off when you back up. I don't imagine you could change that.
Yeah, but you got a backup camera now if you buy a new one.
Oh, I could that's mirrors.
You know,
Mirrors, if you go in, it'll pull them back when you back up.
They all fold in automatically now.
to me, what's gonna meet our need? Is it gonna last? And, you know, funds.
And we couldn't ask for larger doors? That's just not what they do?
I'm sure you could.
We could, I'm sure.
The other thing with the modern pool, the steel building, there's no insulation in the ceiling on that, the way it's written here. And you don't want one of them just from the climate change, from, you know, the hot sun beats on it, or it gets warm and cold, you get moisture collects in that rope.
On the underside of the steel.
Steel.
When
Inside
it's cold out, the frost is gonna build up on the underside of that steel. If you get a sunny day, even if it's
It's gonna rain
0
inside.
degrees, if you get a sunny day, it heats up that metal roof, and you're gonna get some dripping in there.
So that, I mean, so a guy could maybe detail these a little more where you know, we want a bigger door for one of them, or, and the other one, we gotta have some insulation. I mean, I'm just telling you what I know, and I would not build another pole building, or a steel roof building without putting some insulation. And it only put a little bit, it's just a tiny bit. You don't need it with the one because it's got shingles and it's got wood on it.
When you say a bigger door, are you referring to width or height?
What's that?
Are you referring to width or height on bigger door? Assuming width, because you can't go any higher on a 12-foot building with 10-foot doors, you
Well,
can better.
These guys have a 10,
12-foot high walls with a 10-foot door.
right,
Because you
and
have-
the other one's got,
Yeah.
where is that, 8-foot door, isn't it? No.
Yeah, it's got a 14-foot wall, I think.
Yeah.
12 foot high.
So, I don't know.
12 foot high wall.
Modern pole.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's, I don't know if heights are a thing unless,
Got, yeah, 14, there's 14 on the model.
12-foot high door.
right, so you can't go any higher, but I see where you're going,
Go
wider
wider.
door, single door versus two, I mean, there's options there, but again, I digress to vary, I mean, two 8-foots or one 12-foot, or, you know, it's always a,
The wider the door, until you get to a certain point, the cheaper it is per square foot that you cover. Which I would have thought it was the other way, but it's not.
it's cheaper than the wood.
Well, right, I mean, you know, instead of going with 4 8-foot doors, now you got eight sets of tracks and.
Correct.
Or, I mean,
Eight
four
openers,
sets of
eight
tracks
tracks.
and 4 openers, where if you're gonna go to a 10-foot door, now you drop to 3 doors, so you got 3 sets of tracks and 3 openers. It is, I mean, the wider your door, in a sense, yes, the cheaper it is. And looking at modern overhead door here, you know, what they got here is 10 foot wide, which is fine, but it's only 8 foot high.
I don't think that's a mistake.
I think so too, I mean, because we've got 12-foot walls. I mean, these doors from modern overhead should be, you know, 10 by 10. I mean, I don't know where they came up
Yeah,
with
with that dimension.
with that dimension, so. And if, you know, if that's what we want, a 10 by 10 door, yes, that's, you know, that's gonna increase
Price.
their price. I mean, it's not gonna be $3,000, but it's, you know, it's probably gonna be $1,000
For both or for just?
for all of them,
For all.
yeah. Because here again, you got the same set of tracks.
Yep.
You're just extending, it's one more section of door, height-wise.
Another panel or whatever.
Right.
So, just throwing an idea out there, you know construction, maybe,
I don't know what that laugh was for.
maybe the best thing to do is to sit down and, with you and I and them, and
I don't know if we're gonna be able to make a decision tonight because.
determine that, and then, get that information, you know, get the fresh bids out there, and then, I don't know if you take a vote, you know, by email, I don't know if that's legal or
Well,
not.
I mean, I guess the other option, you know, what we could do is make this figure
Amendable.
well, you know, either run it not to exceed 63,000 or something like that.
They might have did those doors because that might be what they can get. That might be the other problem.
That's a possibility, yeah.
Just thinking, or they just did a stock 10 by 8. Based on, just thinking it was a garage versus a 12-foot garage.
I honestly think that Modern Pole gets their doors from Modern Overhead. I don't know that, but I think
Yeah,
they used to,
they do.
yeah.
It did.
So if Modern Pole builders can get that size door from Modern Overhead can get that door to put in.
They're all CHI doors. I mean, they're all carried by Modern.
Right.
CHI. That's what they carry.
Kind of like your idea not to exceed a certain amount, and then adjust,
I'm not so sure 63 is high,
Right, we might have to go 65 just to be safe.
not to exceed that.
So it goes back to the roof. One of them will have to be replaced in the future, and the steel one will not have to be replaced, but I'm hearing that you do need installation, otherwise there's water coming in, and again, to protect the.
And you wouldn't want that, you know, you wouldn't want to grip it on that antique
I
fire
did not know
truck.
that. Well,
Or on
anything,
anything.
yeah. I didn't realize.
Because the whole purpose of putting it in there was to get it out of the elements. And if you don't,
And it would be out of, I mean, it would be better, but.
but
you need
it
that.
would be, but it wouldn't be.
Right.
In theory, it'd be replacing the shingles, not the roof.
Okay.
Not the entire, like, hopefully in theory. You don't have to
Right.
replace, there might be a board or two, but it would be the shingles.
But with having to replace a roof, which my understanding is you wouldn't have to replace a steel roof, what we are saying is in the future, we are now having to put in the budget something that, you know, we originally paid like for a one-time thing.
You do a steel roof on a wood building?
Sure.
You can.
You can
You
steal
put a
over.
steel roof
You can
on a-
steal over a roof.
Yeah.
You would. I've done it.
Yeah.
Triple the price probably of that shingle.
That's why some people do it, because you don't have to strip the shingles, you just put steel over the top of the roof.
You use that as your cushion in between.
It
your-
strips down, and
And then you wouldn't need the insulation.
Yeah, you can use it as your cushion too.
Put the plywood over the top and then I put the steel over the top of the plywood.
Put that metal roof on there versus the
Extra
asphalt, that's gonna be triple.
Well, steel, you know,
Right now,
Steel costs more. You know, shingles don't always last so good and steel costs more, so you gotta, you know, my theory, I would never build anything with a shingled roof anymore, but that's just my opinion. And
right,
shingles-
and that's
Right.
that's Gary's opinion.
Right. That's just
I built
opinion.
my shop,
Yeah,
I did 2x6 studs, I put steel on the sidewalls, I got a shingle roof,
yeah.
whatever.
How long is a shingle roof gonna last?
They got architectural.
Well, I guess
I
that
think a lot.
depends.
They got architectural on them,
Yeah,
architectural.
architectural,
30 or 40 years.
yeah, they're a 40-year shingle and they'll give you a lifetime warranty on it if there's, you know,
Well, those companies will go out of business after 10 years, so. you know.
Yeah.
that was bad.
I
That was back in the
I built
80s.
my house and shop 30 years ago,
And they're good.
my shingles are still good, but I'm putting a new roof on this year. I mean, Yes, granted, that depends on the shingle, absolutely.
Steel can go bad though too. I've seen
And
many,
we've seen that.
many a building
It rusts,
reissued.
or what? Yeah,
Or you can
it's,
lose your paint on
But
it.
still, if it's gonna be a 30, 40-year roof, and it's cheaper to do it, it's meeting our needs. It's really matter. I don't know.
How many times can you re-shingle it versus the cost of the steel? That's really what you do. That's
Depending upon the roofing company, a lot of roofers now are taking off, they tear off and put on just a single layer because of the architectural and the weight of the shingle.
Say it's
Yeah.
10 grand
Well, and
for
the
shingles,
sad thing
30
of it
grand
is
for metal.
nowadays-
You can shingle it 3 times.
By the time you gotta re-shingle, the shingles are so bad, you can't just shingle over the
Right,
top
you
of
gotta
it.
tear off.
and pretty much all the shingle companies won't stand behind their warranty if you go over a layer of shingle.
Exactly, yep.
And you're only gonna get prorated on that warranty anyway, so
Correct.
And back to Jolene's point of,
$2 a square.
or
Yeah,
That's a certainty too.
yeah.
back to either one of these points, you know, $10,000 is $10,000, whatever.
To me, I'm okay with the shingles because I think we'll be able to shingle it multiple times for the cost of the metal. Who knows in the future?
So is there any other discussion on this? If not, I'll make a motion that we use Ripon area builders, modern overhead door, and the cost not to exceed $65,000.
You're gonna change the door sizes.
We'll change the door size.
I was trying, and I couldn't
Do you
it
want to be
fast enough.
specific
I used to
in the
run,
door
but
sizes? I think
I
maybe you
was trying to
should,
think
no?
how much
In
the
the,
roof was gonna
in the, what,
Trying to figure out my
I mean, are you
square
saying
footage.
10 by 10?
be. You couldn't do it fast.
I don't know if we need to be, I mean, if you want it to be specific, I can do that, but
I didn't hear your question, I'm sorry.
My question was, should we be specific in the motion as far as, so, the motion on the table was to change the door, and I said, should we be more specific as to what we mean by changing the door? Right, larger, do you want to be specific as to what larger means?
I don't have a problem with them meeting with those guys and deciding what size door they really need.
But I think they could go to
What-
10 by 10 pretty easily.
But, you know, maybe
It
it's
still gives you 2 foot.
$20 more to go for
For
a 10 by 12. I
Right.
don't know what two of them.
Well, then you
I
have to go with
think, I
taller
just soon let
sidewalls
them
then.
figure it out when they're down there. Because we have a specific limit on how much we're gonna spend.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're gonna lay out there, to tell them they have to do it this way.
Is there a second to that one?
not yet.
Then we shouldn't really be.
I thought Jolene was good.
Yeah,
I'll second.
I can second it.
I'll second.
I can.
Really, we should have a second to
Yeah.
discuss it.
Well, I could say that a second ago.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion on this? If not, we'll do a roll call. Mr. Hank,
It was 65.
Not to exceed.
not to exceed 65.
Yes.
And, I mean, real, yeah, okay, that's right. Mr. Hanson,
Yes.
Mr. Gatsky,
Yes.
Mr. Schatzinger,
Yes.
Mr. Wirch,
Yes.
Mr. Orgula,
Yes.
Mr. Page,
Yes,
me? Yes. Okay, I know, don't be smart. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you all, it was good discussion. So then I'll throw this out now. Do we want to consider anything else for that money tonight?
how long is this good for? And is this the only one we got? for the-
There's 3 of them there,
For,
the blacktop.
you know,
But did you have more than
We
one?
only got one here.
I've only got one.
I got 2 more to hand out, but let me,
Digress.
huh?
Digress.
I'll just let you pass them around.
Well, let's see if we're gonna go that far. All right, I mean, if that's okay with you guys. I mean, it doesn't pay for us to see all these bids if we're not active.
My recommendation, and I'm just, as I'm rethinking this whole thing, is to pull that back and let's do one thing at a time.
And then we can reevaluate.
Because I think I'm listening to what these two are saying, and they bring up totally valid points. I think we should pull back, let's get the garage done, let's, one step at a time, because we don't know what the future holds. We've used that money to do something substantial, what do you call it, that's not the word I'm looking for, but
Tangible?
tangible, thank you. It's a big word for me.
And it still leaves enough to cover paid on premise for next year in theory.
In theory, but hopefully we won't need that.
Right.
And that comes down to my capital budgeting and our brainstorming.
And
So,
there are grants that you can apply for out there yet for
staffing
staffing?
for full-time.
Okay.
But what comes with that, we don't need to be a full-time department. Because what comes with that, in 5 years from now, or whatever that grant is, you're expected to pick up that
At that point.
chunk, right? And if you don't, the federal government will never give you another grant. If you back out of a grant like that, you're gonna be hard pressed to get another grant, number one.
Sure.
Number two is, if we had to take that over as a full-time grant, that would cost us millions of dollars. We could do the same thing with double the staff for,
Far less.
I don't wanna say next to nothing, but
Far less.
for far, far, far less. And I don't think we need that. We need to be the paid on premise part-time department if we need to be anything at all.
Okay.
One proposal that maybe I'd like to make as far as spending a little extra money might be, one of the reasons why this was so important for the garage was to also make sure that the person was recognized. Part of this bid did not include a plaque on it. I don't know how much a plaque would be, but it does make sense that if we are approving this for the reason to honor this gift, maybe we also want to say that we also put money aside for a plaque.
Well, we have this money, and we might be using this money to have the drone and the tires, and we could get the plaque out of that, and do a consider it covered.
Yeah,
Good point.
I mean, and there,
We should be able to operationally absorb that.
yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Worst case, you have this, I don't want to say contingency, that's not going to work. But we always have contingency funds. This is the double top secret contingency fund. And I don't, for future, I hope you guys think of it that way.
Okay, so
And we
then,
did, just to throw us out there, we did have from last year's budget approximately about $40,000 left. So if you wanted to take 7 of that and put it towards a drone, or 5 of that, you could do that. I mean, there's other options.
But we might need that to do
But
our
you might
operation.
need, yeah, I get it.
I mean,
Wait and see which drone they go with, and then go off that.
Yeah,
I honestly don't want to pull any more out of your budget, the way the operational thing could work.
say that again.
No, and you would have to make sure the budget is correctly budgeted next year if you do use these funds towards it.
So what do we, I'm gonna throw a question out there, what do we do with the portion of the money that the association is willing to donate to the district? That half of that, you know what I mean, so if we don't decide to do anything, they wanna give us the money, what do we do with it?
I think we need to make a commitment on whether we're gonna do our half of what they're.
Because I'm sure that's gonna be a question that they're gonna ask.
And we have, I think, I mean, I'm ready to vote and say we're gonna match what they want to do. With this donation.
It's free money, it's not free money, but it's
Well, they only
donated
charge
money
for
that
that money,
they're
and we need.
paying half of something.
You know what? I'd be willing to make a motion to meet to match the association's money for what they want to donate.
for the drone
For the drone
and the tires.
And the tires. that's all they wanted money from us for, right?
Yes.
They were gonna finish the
Memorial.
Memorial, they're doing
Yes.
themselves.
They're gonna finish it.
and I think it's, you know, and I'd make a motion, we take it out of the
Balance of.
donation that we,
Mike was gonna say something.
Need a second to discuss.
Well, is that an official?
Make your,
Was
you
that
got
an
his
official?
motion, Jim?
Kinda.
Okay, so before we get into a discussion on that, let's do our motion, get a second, and then we can do the discussion.
I'll second that.
Okay?
What is the drone really for?
Pardon me?
What is the drone for? What's the,
It's been used on fire scenes. To give you an example, I'm gonna use you for example.
Right ahead.
We've had a couple of fires over at the wafer factory. One of them, we were able to put that drone up and we wanted to see if it got into the roof. And if it did, what kind of heat we had there. So we were able to use it for that. We have used it for other smaller structure fires. We've used it for lost people. We've used it for, so,
3 years ago, Southwoods, 2
Yeah,
years
so that was actually gonna be my follow-up, was are you able to partner with like police or anything like that and use it alongside them for?
yeah, I mean, we use it together. They use it a lot less than we do, like a lot less. They purchased the software for the training for it. They purchased the simulator and they purchased the big screen TV that's mounted in the police station. So when they do their simulator training, the fire guys go over there and they train there. When they do their, when we do flying training, they come here usually and they do the flying training here.
And you're
So-
saying the current one you have is not supported anymore?
It's the software, I'm not the drone guy. I wish I could call him right now. I told him I might call him tonight.
I just didn't know if there was another cost, if you approve the new drone, if then the police or someone has a new cost for the new software.
No,
So that will work with.
correct. It's just the drone software itself
Okay.
and the drone itself. So, and you know, we've had that drone for
5 years, 6 years.
5, 6, 7
years.
years, 6, 7 years.
And you know as well as I do, technology, you buy a computer tomorrow, technology changes in 8 months and you're like, what am I gonna do? So that's what we're up against, so.
Any other,
Can we use this old drone for training? Just in case somebody's gonna.
I would, as long as it operates, I'm not the,
I mean, even to fly it, even
Just
if
to
it
learn to
doesn't.
fly.
yeah,
Yeah. I
I'm
think-
not the drone guy.
No, I know. Well, that's Mr. Davis, right?
Yeah, you know, Steve's really up to date on that stuff. We do have a smaller drone that we were using for a training drone before we got the one, because we didn't want to damage the new one. If we're gonna damage anything, damage the small one, you know, so, but that's what it's, we use it for grass fires too, out in the township, to see which way the fire was going, we've used it for that. So it's got so many different uses. And the police department, they have put their share into their share, but for what they use it for, you know, I think it's appropriate.
any other discussion? Jim, would you repeat the motion?
Motion by
please?
Page, second by Wardula, to use donation funds to match the Firefighter Association funds to purchase a new drone and tires for the antique fire truck. Sound right, Gary?
Sounds all right to me, Jim.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Ms. Schatzinger,
Yes.
Mr. Gotsky,
Yes.
Mr. Hanson.
Yes.
Mr. Page.
Yes.
Mr. Wargula,
Yes.
Mr. Wirch,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Motion passes 7-0.
So possibly then those funds, you were gonna use operating for the truck tires? Maybe use those?
I'm sorry, what?
You were gonna use operating funds for the truck tires originally
Correct.
in your conversation?
Correct.
Maybe use that then for the plaque.
Yeah, that's what when she was talking about that, that's what I thought,
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking,
that's what I was
because
thinking.
that's in there.
Okay.
But you're not anymore. So we're just paid for the fire.
For the plaque.
He's talking about the plaque.
All the black.
He was gonna take it out of operating, but since we paid for it with the donated, so
Yeah.
we'll have 8,
Right and left pocket.
72, 28, 26, 54 about sitting in there roughly. Hopefully less, get it cheaper.
And if the drone, you
Get
know,
the doors cheap.
That was the high end, that was the high end for the drone too. That wasn't, so, yeah. While we're on donations, I need to talk about one more thing. So we had a $2,500 check donated, I brought it to you guys last time, right? So back in December, trying to think, December 3rd, we ordered a RIP pack, which is a firefighter rescue pack. It's an air pack that if the downed firefighter's in there, we didn't get one when we bought our air packs, and it's our old one wasn't, it was with our old bottles, and we were able to use it, but we're not able to use it anymore. So we did purchase one in December. That pack was $4,600, and that was gonna come out of my budget at the time. Well, I don't pay the bills until we get the product. It just came in, and I talked to Barb about getting it under last year's budget, and she said that it's already, yeah, the audit's already done, which I didn't even know that. So, what's that?
A couple weeks ago.
Yeah, so I just wanna make sure that you guys are okay using this 25 towards this air pack, this this RIT pack, and that way it leaves only roughly $2,500 out of my budget. So this was donated money. I believe the other departments got it too.
No specifications on what the money was to be used for, correct?
No, there's no stipulations. It was just a donation, anonymous donation. But I think it's good to, it's gone towards something like that. So, if anybody has an issue with it. I mean, normally, I would just put it in our donation budget in the district, and I would just pay for it anyway, but last time at the meeting, I brought it up, so I just wanted to be transparent with it to say this is what I'm gonna do with it. Anybody have an issue? Okay.
Can I second this donation?
Get this photo up.
Yes.
Everybody's good? Moving on to new business, you want to mention this?
Yeah,
now,
so
or-
I'm gonna just mention it tonight because nothing's gonna happen with it for, basically what's happening is our one command vehicle was leaking the oil the other day pretty bad, and we took it over, and I think it's gonna be the main seal, and it's got 170,000 miles on it. It's burning a little oil out of the exhaust when it first starts up. What happened was in discussions with the EMS chief, because you guys are going to the lease program, so the EMS chief will be getting a new vehicle, and the vehicle they have now, that Med 10, the Med car, they're gonna sell that. That car's only got 13,000 miles on it, so my thought process was, hey, you need to jump on that because we're not gonna get a deal like that again. We know it was maintained and stuff like that, so I did have a short discussion with Adam, and he did send me an email saying that he looked into it and that said he could sell it to us. However, their truck is now 6 to 12 months out. So he said if you can baby it along, which we were gonna baby it along anyway, I wasn't gonna replace it, but if we have an opportunity to do so, I think that we need to look at that. So we don't have to do anything with it now. I'm just putting it food for thought, so when the city does get rid of that vehicle, we really need to grab that if we can. So,
Okay,
that's all.
thank you. Any board discussion? Hopefully we had enough tonight.
I have one thing.
No.
Didn't move quick enough.
Well, Jim did not run for, and he's gonna be done tonight probably, huh, Jim?
Yep.
I would just like to thank him
Yes.
for doing the great job that he's done. You know, he's been double or triple worked here compared to most of us. And I just want to give my appreciation to him for what he's done for the fire district.
Thank you.
Here, here.
All right, I'm not done yet. You beat me to the punch, but I do want to thank you for everything you've done for me. I will tell you, you were here when you were one of them that hired me.
It's your fault.
Yeah, I know.
And I will tell you that I remember the night that I was at my kid's basketball game, and I called you. I finally said, I gotta make a phone call, because this is killing me. And I called you and we communicated that night, and I'm so soft. But that was the best night of my life.
I'll let Renee know that.
And, but you changed Renee and I and our boy's life, and it's been the best change ever. So I want to thank you for everything you've done for the district, for me as a person, for me as a chief, and the friend you are. So thank you for that from me and Renee both.
Same back after that. Well, I just want to thank everybody, obviously. I'm not going away, I'm not moving to Alaska. I'm
Yep.
sure I might see Tim here and there, obviously budget time. I'll help him out next year, and I don't know who or what
I'm
you're
gonna
gonna
take
do.
back everything I said.
I'll get everything up, obviously I'm not going away, I'm not just gonna, here's a computer, have a nice day, So I'll get you guys up and running, and questions, concerns, whoever will be on it. I have a bunch of the old paperwork, I'll get them in bylaws and all that stuff, so. Just want to thank everybody, obviously, Mark and Tim, we've been around a long time, Gary and Howie, some of you guys are newbies, but been here a long time, 12 years, so been fun, it really has. District's come a long way, I hope you guys realize where this has come in the last 12 years.
A lot of hard work by
A lot of
people.
hard work by a lot of people that aren't even involved anymore. I wish my buddy Mr. Brockman was still here, so I could thank him personally for all he's done for this district as well, but more of it, so you guys always know it's these guys. They wear the blue out there, that's by the department, is what it is. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
yep.
Couple of agenda items for May. We will have some new board members coming on, and also May will be election of officers. And there may be other changes other than just some of the city people. Not sure what yet, but just giving you a heads up. Next regular meeting will be May 3rd. And other than that,
Actually,
we'll...
I have a question on that. There was an original question to see if, because Chief can't be there, so we're gonna change that meeting, so we're gonna keep it.
No, I guess that's...
When are you back in May? Are you going all of May?
I wish I was gonna. Did you hear that? She wants to be gone all of it. No, I will be returning,
I have my vacations planned.
I'll be
out
back
much better
for
than that.
I won't be back for the May 9th meeting either, if we had it the May 9th, but I'm back anytime after the 16th, including the 16th.
Deputy chief always does.
Let's give him a break,
Sure.
just to have the meeting on the 3rd, because everybody.
The deputy chief can do it too. He's been wanting to do one for a while, so.
Been a few years.
Okay.
It's great to have you tonight.
We'll just keep it at that. If something comes
All right,
up,
so
him and I will communicate. We'll work it.
our regular meeting will be next May 3rd. Other than that, we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
Whew.
8:44.